What happens when Hollywood royalty collides with daytime television's sweetheart in a clash nobody saw coming? In just 36 seconds, a casual conversation about charity work spiraled into one of the most shocking exits in talk show history, leaving audiences gasping and a studio audience in stunned silence. Kelly Clarkson had been looking forward to this interview for weeks. Meghan Markle was scheduled to appear on The Kelly Clarkson Show to discuss her latest philanthropic ventures and her life away from the royal spotlight. The producers promised it would be lighthearted, fun, and inspirational. What they got instead was television gold that would be dissected for years to come. The interview started pleasantly enough. Kelly, wearing her signature warm smile and a bright yellow dress, welcomed Meghan onto the stage. The audience erupted in applause as Meghan walked out in an elegant cream pantsuit, waving graciously to the crowd. They exchanged pleasantries, hugged, and settled into the plush chairs across from each other. "I'm so excited to have you here," Kelly began, her voice filled with genuine enthusiasm. "I've been dying to hear about all the amazing work you've been doing lately." Meghan smiled, crossing her legs and adjusting herself in the seat. "Thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here." "So let's dive right in," Kelly continued, leaning forward with interest. "You've been involved with several charities over the past year. Tell us about what's been capturing your heart lately." Meghan launched into a detailed description of her work with various organizations, speaking about women's empowerment and educational initiatives. Kelly listened attentively, nodding along and asking follow-up questions. The conversation flowed smoothly, and everything seemed perfect. Then, Kelly shifted gears slightly. I love how passionate you are about these causes. As someone who also grew up without a lot of privilege, I really connect with wanting to give back. What inspired you to focus on these particular issues?" Meghan's expression changed almost imperceptibly. Her smile tightened just a fraction. "Well, Kelly, I think my experiences have been quite unique. Growing up without privilege is one thing, but navigating the complexities of royal life and then stepping away from that to find your authentic voice is another level entirely." Kelly blinked, maintaining her composure. "Of course, everyone's journey is different. I was just saying, I appreciate the work you're doing." "I understand," Meghan replied, her tone cooling slightly. "But I think it's important to recognize that not all struggles are the same. Some of us have had to overcome obstacles that most people couldn't even imagine." The studio audience shifted uncomfortably. Kelly's smile remained fixed, but her eyes showed a flicker of confusion. "Absolutely. I think we can all agree that everyone faces their own challenges." "Can we, though?" Meghan interrupted, uncrossing and recrossing her legs. "Because honestly, Kelly, and I mean this with respect, but sitting here, I'm not sure you truly understand what it means to be scrutinized at the level I've been scrutinized." Kelly paused, choosing her words carefully. "I've definitely had my share of public criticism over the years. Being in the spotlight can be really tough." Meghan let out a small laugh that didn't reach her eyes. "Criticism from music reviewers and tabloids about your personal life is hardly comparable to what I've endured. The systematic attacks, the racism, the institutional gaslighting. It's on a completely different scale." "I hear you," Kelly said gently, trying to steer the conversation back to safer ground. "And I'm sorry you went through that. I think what's wonderful is that you're using your platform now to help others. That's what I wanted to talk about today." "My platform," Meghan repeated, emphasizing each word. "See, that's interesting that you call it that, because my platform was built through incredible sacrifice. I gave up everything. My career, my privacy, my freedom. What did you give up, Kelly? You went from American Idol to a successful music career to a talk show. That's a pretty straightforward path." The audience gasped quietly. Kelly's smile finally faltered. "I'm not sure what you mean by that." "I mean exactly what I said," Meghan continued, her voice taking on an edge. "Your success has been relatively easy compared to what I've had to navigate. You haven't had to deal with palace intrigue, family betrayal at the highest levels, or being villainized by an entire country's media. Kelly took a deep breath, and you could see her processing how to respond. Meghan, I invited you here to celebrate your work, not to compare our struggles. Everyone in this room has faced hardships. I grew up in a small town in Texas with very little money. I've dealt with divorce, weight criticism, and people constantly judging my choices. I'm not saying my experience is the same as yours, but I do understand difficulty. Do you? Meghan challenged, leaning forward. Have you ever been driven to the point where you didn't want to be alive anymore? Have you ever been trapped in a system that was literally killing you from the inside? The studio went completely silent. Kelly's expression softened, with genuine concern. I'm really sorry you felt that way. Mental health is so important, and I'm glad you're here and that you got help. I didn't ask for your sympathy, Meghan snapped. I'm making a point about the difference between our experiences. You sit here in your comfortable talk show, asking surface-level questions, pretending to understand, but you don't. And you can't. Kelly's producer could be seen off camera, making urgent hand gestures, but Kelly handled it with grace. Meghan, I think there might be some misunderstanding here. I genuinely do care, and I'm not pretending anything. Every interviewer says that, Meghan shot back. They all say they care. They all say they understand. And then they reduce everything I've been through to sound bites and gossip fodder. I came here thinking this would be different, that maybe you would actually get it. But clearly I was wrong. I'm trying to give you space to share your story, Kelly said, her voice remaining calm but firm. But I'm also not going to sit here and let you diminish my own experiences or suggest that I don't have empathy just because our lives have been different. Meghan stood up abruptly, and the microphone clipped to her jacket made a sharp feedback noise. This is exactly what I'm talking about. The second I speak my truth, the second I assert myself, I'm made to feel like I'm the problem. This is the same pattern over and over again. Nobody is making you feel like you're the problem, Kelly replied, also standing. I'm simply saying that we can both have had difficult experiences without invalidating each other. You don't get it, Meghan said, shaking her head. You will never get it. And honestly, I don't know why I expected anything different from someone who has lived such a privileged, protected life. Kelly's eyes widened. Privileged? Meghan, with all due respect, you married into one of the wealthiest families in the world. You lived in palaces. I grew up in a house where we struggled to pay bills. And I gave that all up, Meghan fired back. I walked away from that because it was toxic. Can you say you've ever sacrificed anything close to that? Can you say you've ever had the courage to walk away from everything for your principles? I've made plenty of sacrifices for my principles, Kelly said, her voice rising slightly for the first time. I've stood up for myself. I've fought for creative control. I've navigated a cutthroat industry while trying to stay true to who I am. Just because my struggles weren't in a palace doesn't make them less real. Meghan laughed bitterly. There it is, the defensiveness, the inability to just listen and acknowledge that maybe, just maybe, some people have it harder than you. I'm happy to listen, Kelly said, clearly working to keep her composure. But I'm not going to be lectured about privilege by someone who is currently worth millions of dollars and has every opportunity in the world at her fingertips. Those opportunities came at a cost you couldn't possibly understand, Meghan retorted. Then help me understand, Kelly pleaded, extending her hand in a gesture of openness. That's what we're here for. Talk to me. Talk to the audience. Share your experience without attacking mine. I'm not attacking you, Meghan insisted. I'm simply stating facts. The fact is, your life has been easy compared to mine. The fact is, you have no idea what it's like to be me. The fact is, this interview was a mistake. Kelly's face showed a mixture of hurt and frustration. If that's how you feel, then I'm sorry you see it that way. But I don't think it's fair to come onto my show and insult me, insult my journey, and then act like I'm the one being unreasonable. I'm not insulting you, Meghan said, her voice rising. I'm being honest. Maybe you're just not used to people being honest with you. Maybe everyone around you just tells you what you want to hear, because you're Kelly Clarkson, America's sweetheart, and nobody wants to upset you. The audience murmured uncomfortably. Kelly shook her head slowly. That's not true, and that's not fair. I've always encouraged honesty and real conversation on this show, but there's a difference between honesty and being hurtful. Oh, so now I'm being hurtful, Meghan said, throwing her hands up. Of course. The moment a woman, especially a woman of color, speaks her mind, she's being difficult. She's being hurtful. She's being too much. This has nothing to do with that, Kelly responded firmly. This has to do with you coming here and being disrespectful. I've been nothing but kind to you. I've given you a platform to share your message. And instead of having a genuine conversation, you've spent this entire time telling me how easy my life has been and how I couldn't possibly understand anything. Meghan's jaw tightened. Because it's true. It's your perspective, Kelly corrected. But it's not the objective truth. The truth is, we're two women who have both faced challenges, both found success, and both want to make a difference. We could have had an amazing conversation about that. Instead, you've chosen to make this adversarial. I didn't make this adversarial, Meghan protested. You did. Well, by comparing yourself to me in the first place. I didn't compare myself to you, Kelly said, her patience clearly wearing thin. I expressed empathy. I tried to find common ground. That's what hosts do. That's what human beings do. Well, maybe I don't want your empathy, Meghan declared. Maybe I'm tired of people like you acting like you understand when you clearly don't. Kelly crossed her arms. People like me? What does that mean? People who have had everything handed to them, Meghan said sharply. Everything handed to me? Kelly repeated, her voice incredulous. Meghan, I worked my way up from nothing. I sang in competitions. I fought for every opportunity. I built my career from the ground up. Nobody handed me anything. Please, Meghan scoffed. You won a singing competition on television and became famous overnight. You think that's the same as dealing with institutional racism, family betrayal, and global scrutiny? I never said it was the same, Kelly emphasized. But that doesn't mean my path was easy or that I didn't earn what I have. Earn it, Meghan repeated mockingly. You earned it by singing songs and smiling for the camera. I earned my place by surviving a system that was designed to destroy me. Kelly's face flushed. You know what, Meghan? I've tried to be understanding. I've tried to be patient. I've tried to give you the benefit of the doubt. But you're being incredibly rude and condescending, and I don't deserve that. My audience doesn't deserve to watch this. Then maybe I should leave, Meghan suggested, starting to remove her microphone. Maybe you should, Kelly agreed, her voice steady but cold. Meghan fumbled with the microphone pack, her hands shaking slightly with anger. This is unbelievable. I came here in good faith, and this is how I'm treated. You came here and immediately started attacking me, Kelly countered. Don't twist this around. I didn't attack you, Meghan insisted, finally getting the microphone off and dropping it onto the chair. I simply refused to play along with your superficial talk show nonsense. Kelly's eyes flashed. My show has featured hundreds of guests who have shared real, meaningful stories. Just because you decided to be hostile doesn't make this superficial. Hostile, Meghan laughed sharply. There's that word again. A woman stands up for herself, and suddenly she's hostile. A guest insults her host repeatedly, and yes, that's hostile, Kelly stated flatly. Gender has nothing to do with it. Meghan grabbed her purse from beside the chair. Of course you would say that. You've never had to deal with the kind of prejudice I have. You don't know what I've dealt with, Kelly said quietly. You don't know my whole story because you never bothered to ask. You came here with an agenda, with a chip on your shoulder, and you took it out on me. I don't have an agenda, Meghan protested, though her body language suggested otherwise. Then what would you call this? Kelly gestured at the scene around them. We're 10 minutes into an interview that was supposed to be about your charity work, and instead, We're in an argument because you can't stop telling me how privileged I am. Meghan's face hardened. Because you need to hear it. And people like you need to understand that not everyone has it as easy as you do. And people like you, Kelly said, her voice carrying a sharp edge now, need to understand that wealth and fame don't erase your struggles, but they also don't give you the right to belittle everyone else's. The audience was completely still, watching this unfold like a car crash they couldn't look away from. Meghan stood there for a moment, clutching her purse, her chest rising and falling with angry breaths. "I don't have to stand here and take this," she finally said. "You're right, you don't," Kelly agreed. "And honestly, at this point, I think it's better if you go." Meghan's eyes widened in shock. "Are you kicking me off your show?" "I'm suggesting that since you clearly don't want to be here and have nothing positive to contribute to this conversation, it might be best if we end this now," Kelly said firmly. "Unbelievable," Meghan breathed. "So now I'm being silenced. Again." "Nobody is silencing you," Kelly said, exasperation creeping into her voice. "You've been talking nonstop since you sat down. You've said everything you wanted to say. You just don't like that I'm not agreeing with you or apologizing for existing." Meghan shook her head in disgust. "This is exactly the problem. This is why nothing ever changes." "What's the problem, Meghan?" Kelly asked, spreading her hands. "Please enlighten me. What is the problem here?" "The problem is that people like you are so wrapped up in your own bubble that you can't see past your own nose," Meghan declared. "You can't see the real issues, the real struggles, because you've never had to face them." Kelly's composure finally cracked completely. "You know what? I'm done. I've tried to be gracious. I've tried to be understanding. But I'm done. You came onto my show. You insulted me. You insulted my journey. You've been nothing but condescending and rude, and now you're acting like you're the victim here. That's not okay." "I am the victim," Meghan shot back. "Of what?" Kelly demanded. "Of being invited onto a talk show where the host tried to have a nice conversation with you? Of being given a platform to talk about your charity work? Of being treated with respect until you decided to throw it back in my face?" Meghan's nostrils flared. "You have no idea what you're talking about." "Then leave," Kelly said simply. "If this is so terrible, if I'm so awful, if this show is so beneath you, then go. Nobody is forcing you to stay." Meghan looked around the studio, at the cameras, at the audience, at Kelly standing there with her arms crossed. The silence stretched out, thick and uncomfortable. "Fine," Meghan said finally. "I will." She turned on her heel and started walking toward the exit. The cameras followed her, capturing every step. Kelly remained standing by her chair, watching, but not saying anything more. The audience sat, frozen, unsure whether to react. Meghan reached the edge of the stage, then turned back. "You know what, Kelly? I actually feel sorry for you." Kelly raised an eyebrow. "Sorry for me?" "Yes," Meghan said, "because you're so invested in this fake, happy, everything is wonderful image that you can't handle any real truth. You can't handle anyone challenging you or making you uncomfortable. That must be exhausting." Kelly let out a long breath. "What's exhausting is trying to have a conversation with someone who's determined to be offended by everything. I wake up every day grateful for what I have, but that doesn't mean I haven't worked hard for it or that I haven't struggled. You don't get to decide whose pain is valid and whose isn't." "I'm not deciding anything," Meghan retorted. "I'm simply pointing out reality." "Your reality," Kelly corrected. "Your perspective. Which is fine. You're entitled to it. But so am I. And my reality is that you came here looking for a fight, and I'm not going to give you one anymore." Meghan stared at her for a long moment, then shook her head again. "Goodbye, Kelly." "Goodbye, Meghan," Kelly replied evenly. Meghan walked off the stage, her heels clicking loudly in the silent studio. The heavy door closed behind her with a thud that seemed to echo. Kelly stood there for a few seconds, then turned to face her audience and the cameras. "Well," she said, her voice slightly shaky, but trying for lightness. "That was unexpected." A nervous laugh rippled through the audience. Kelly ran a hand through her hair and let out a breath. "I think we're going to take a quick break," she said to the cameras. "When we come back, we'll have our next guest, and hopefully a much more positive conversation." The audience applauded, more out of support for Kelly than anything else. As the show cut to commercial, Kelly finally sat down, her professional mask slipping just enough to show how rattled she was. Her producers rushed over, but she waved them off with a tired smile. The cameras had captured everything: the tension, the accusations, the shocking exit. What was supposed to be a feel-good interview about charity and empowerment had turned into one of the most dramatic moments in daytime television history. Kelly had remained professional, kind, and patient throughout, even as Meghan had attacked her character, her journey, and her show. In those 36 seconds, when Meghan first suggested Kelly couldn't understand her struggles, the tone had shifted completely. What followed was a masterclass in how quickly a conversation could spiral, how defensiveness could fuel conflict, and how sometimes, even with the best intentions, two people simply couldn't find common ground. Kelly had tried everything to salvage the interview, to redirect to safer topics, to acknowledge Meghan's pain without accepting blame for it. But Meghan had been determined to make her point, to assert her suffering as supreme, to reject any comparison or empathy as insufficient. The exit itself was both shocking and somehow inevitable. Once Meghan had started down the path of confrontation, there was no easy way back. Kelly's final decision to suggest Meghan leave was not made lightly or quickly, but only after every attempt at reconciliation had been rejected. As the audience sat there, processing what they had just witnessed, many felt a mixture of emotions. Sympathy for Kelly, who had handled an impossible situation with grace, confusion about Meghan's hostility, and discomfort at having watched two successful women unable to connect. The show would go on. Kelly would welcome her next guest with her trademark warmth, but those minutes with Meghan Markle would be replayed, analyzed, and discussed for a long time to come. They showed that sometimes, despite best efforts, despite good intentions, despite platforms and opportunities, people simply cannot meet each other where they are. Kelly had offered empathy, and it was rejected. She had offered understanding, and it was dismissed. She had offered respect, and it was met with contempt. In the end, all she could do was stand her ground, maintain her dignity, and let Meghan make her choice. And Meghan chose to leave, convinced of her righteousness, certain of her victimhood, unable to see that sometimes the enemy we're fighting is the one we've created in our own minds.